The views and opinions expressed on the show are those of the guests or hosts, and not necessarily those of the advertisers, networks, platforms, or stations. Warning that the content of the show may not be suitable for all audiences, and that viewer discretion is advised. The show does not intend to provide medical, legal, or financial advice, and viewers or listeners should consult with a professional before making any decisions based on the information.
Welcome back, everyone, to Paranormal Intelligence Agency Radio. I am your host, Jack Carey, and as always, we are broadcasting from deep down in an abandoned nuclear missile silo somewhere undisclosed in the wastelands of the Dakota Territories, and I'm joined, as always, by my trusty companions, Daisy and the Sundance Kid. They are my crime-fighting paranormal poodle duo, and they are ever on the watch. Way above us on the surface, there are roaming bands of nuclear mutants. They have green mohawks and assless chaps from here to the horizon. Oh, no. I'm sorry. That's Sturgis. Yep, that's Sturgis, South Dakota during the motorcycle rally. I was mistaken this whole time. But tonight we have some really, really interesting stuff. It's been a busy week on the paranormal news wires. And we have a lot of paranormal in the news to cover this evening. Really interesting encounter coming out of Cryptid Corner tonight. Bit of a different flavor. Very interesting encounter that took place off the coast of Maui. Very fascinating stuff. And we'll be discussing a little bit about Bigfoot this evening in Cryptid Corner. This is the time of year when really I begin my own personal field work, cryptozoology field work concerning Bigfoot, and I do it here in South Dakota, but also in Minnesota and Iowa. I'm very close to all of those areas. It doesn't take me many hours to reach quite a few different Bigfoot hotspots. And as always, this is the time of year when I head back to the spot of the Dakota man-beast sighting. If you have not heard of that encounter, it is a fascinating encounter that came out of a quite rural area of South Dakota where there's nothing but generational farmers going back many, many decades. And this gentleman, this eyewitness, was unimpeachable. He was just an old farmer out in the middle of nowhere in South Dakota that had lived there his whole life and had absolutely nothing to gain from his report. And he reported seeing something that wasn't a Bigfoot, but kind of fit that same bill. He described it as a man-beast, a prehistoric human wandering around. And if you've ever been out in some of those areas in the Dakotas where there's literally nobody for tens of, if not hundreds of miles in any direction. I personally have been on a highway investigating a case in the Dakotas where I went almost 100 miles without seeing another car. So that's the kind of remoteness of the area that we're talking about. And it was here that the now famous Dakota man-beast sighting occurred, and every year around this time of year, I travel back to that area in hopes that another witness, another sighting, my own personal encounter, something like that might reveal itself. Perhaps like Bigfoot, whatever this creature was migrating. And maybe we can catch them in that migrational pattern once again. I don't know. But tonight's main topic is a topic that really kind of popped up on numerous occasions over the course of the week. And I was reminded of some interesting modern, cross links that have popped up over the last few months concerning alien abduction and sort of the darker aspects of alien abduction and the whole idea that really when it comes to disclosure and people ask the inevitable question, well, why would they keep this a secret? Well, the alien abduction phenomenon is probably the ultimate reason. When we discuss for our main topic some of the more interesting and enigmatic aspects of the abduction phenomenon, we might get little glimpses into back into the unified field theory of paranormal activity and the Earth's possible interaction with a type 3 civilization on the Kardashev scale. The more I entertain that notion in juxtaposition of modern day information coming out of various sources and look at the puzzle pieces, so to speak, I can begin to see how the puzzle pieces right now are fitting into this whole idea that.
All right, guys, national debt is spiraling out of control. Trade wars are causing record volatility, and inflation could make a devastating comeback. Are you going to sit on the sidelines and wait, or will you take
puzzle pieces right now are fitting into this whole idea that the Earth really in the solar system here and probably quite a few other planets, as we'll see, life was just discovered on another planet. That's part of paranormal news. But when you look at it from the aspect of a type 3 civilization, a civilization that's so old, so advanced, so beyond our ability to even imagine how advanced. It was Arthur C. Clarke who said that any sufficiently advanced science will be indistinguishable from magic. And I have to offer up the idea that what we are seeing in the UFO phenomenon is a lot of times technology that appears to us like magic. And some of this technology, I was reminded over the course of the week, is being utilized in the alien abduction phenomenon. And we need to know why. What is it that they want with us? If this isn't Earth's interaction with a type 3 civilization that literally farmed life on this planet in order to come back and actually harvest all of that life back into its civilization, then what is it we're looking at here? Because the alien abduction phenomenon, when we get down to some of the messaging that has been relayed to the abductees themselves, and we look at some of the construction behind the program and how it operates, which has been revealed to various astute researchers over the course of at least the last 40-year period. Not least among them, Dr. David M. Jacobs of Temple University, which really not only has made huge inroads into the study and understanding of the paranormal phenomenon, along with Bud Hopkins and a lot of other really unsung heroes of the human race. You begin to detect patterns, and those patterns actually reveal quite a bit about the alien abduction phenomenon. But tonight's Paranormal in the News, dailymail.com is running a very interesting article about all of the various kinds of UFO sightings taken seriously by the U.S. government. This article appeared only 6 hours ago, and it says a flame in the sky, eerie red glowing objects and swarms of UFOs over military bases are just some of the many sightings that have gravely concerned the U.S. government. There are dozens of unsolved cases going back to the 1960s that occurred over nuclear missile installations, Navy ships, and a desert in New Mexico. So, and again, we are reminded through this article that one of the main staples of the UFO phenomenon is its apparent obsession with monitoring anything and everything having to do with our nuclear technology. They are apparently never-endingly interested in what we're doing with our nuclear technology, whether that be on a Navy ship, whether that be a nuclear submarine with USOs swarming around it, whether that be actual nuclear missile silos where these craft have appeared above the missile bases only to turn off and disable the missiles through a means and technology that we can't really even comprehend, all the way to the Trinity test and Jacques Vallée's new book. Well, it's not really new, and it came out a couple of years ago, but his new findings on the Trinity crash. And, that's really the cusp, the very beginnings of our nuclear technology and program. And that continues to modern day, this fascination with our nuclear technology. And probably the biggest news really in paranormal out there right now, and really should be the biggest news around the world, is the discovery of a planet labeled K2-18b, which is only, it's around 120 light years from the Earth, which apparently and is in the constellation of Leo, but the James Webb Space Telescope detected atmospheric clues hinting that microbial organisms could be living on the surface. Now, that's being a very watered down version of what a lot of scientists are saying, which is that this is undeniable 100% proof that there is alien life on this planet. What form that life has taken, we can only guess. If it is like I suspect, and in the unified field theory of paranormal activity, almost half of paranormal activity can be equated to our interaction with this type 3 society, civilization. It's highly probable that this is just yet another planet they found within this vicinity of space to seed with life. And over time, if not already, there's probably going to be human-ish, human-like life forms on that planet, and that's because of how they seed life and the kind of life that they are trying to grow on these planets, which is very much like the human species. You'll notice in many interactions with aliens. We have the Greys, and they have a head and 2 arms and 2 legs, etc., and they look very human-ish. 2 eyes, a mouth. That, according to some astrobiologist, should never happen unless that life form actually came from the same planet. There's no way 2 variations of intelligent life should look so much like each other that you would somehow suspect a common source for them. That just shouldn't happen. The laws of probability go against it. And so if you can actually prove that there's life on other planets and in interstellar space on large craft, and that it's human-like, that these things have legs and arms and heads and eyes, and they look like what a primate species would look like, having been, consciously evolved over eons and eons of time, then you can conceivably come into the idea or the notion that all of the various planets that could sustain life, that are within that Goldilocks zone, as they like to call it, which is just the exact distance needed to be from the heat of your star in order to, and enough water to generate life forms. If you look at it like that, then you can conceivably come up with the notion that this is just another planet that was seeded by life from this Type 3 civilization that seems to have, quite possibly, colonized our entire galaxy. What if not only are we not alone, but we're actually just a small part of a vast galactic empire that is actually controlled by an alien intelligence that, to us, because we don't really suspect our origins in that way, would be really kind of like completely alien. How horrific would it be to envision your creator as, let's say, as they describe them, insectoid-like alien that looks like a bug to us? How repulsive would that be to us, that we were simply an experiment of some kind like that, that we were seeded and developed specifically to be what we are, to be sort of re-farmed back into this other really alien insectoid civilization. And there are glimpses that might be the case, and we'll get to those tonight. But that should be huge news. K2-18b may in fact be another planet like you saw on Avatar. What if we show up there with some of our von Neumann probes that we are likely to develop and send those off and see if, once 0 point technology comes out, and see if this is a planet like that, like Pandora. Wouldn't that be fascinating? Well, all kinds of exotic life forms and animals and things like that. So Cyber News is running an interesting article, Skywatcher's Mind over Matter Approach to UFOs. Goes on to say Skywatcher is shaking up UFO research with high-tech sensors and psionics, proving that calling the unknown might be more science than fiction. And this is what I was discussing in a previous broadcast, was that there apparently is a psionic connection to many of these craft that appear in our atmosphere. How and why that's the case is anyone's guess, but when you can repeat an experiment and show that it works over time, then you can develop so-called patterns and tell a lot from those patterns. And that's what the Skywatcher group is doing. As I previously reported, that group is headed up by the whistleblower Jake Barber and some other gentlemen from the Legacy UFO program, as well as some scientists, and they're using some of the highest tech sensors available out there and cameras to psionically or through psychic means. They're able to call UFOs to their area and then film those UFOs using high definition technology and cameras and software and all of that. So, as I stated previously, they're doing two different kinds of calling. One is psionic and one is electromechanical. And it's through the electromechanical calling that they apparently keep getting this jellyfish-like craft or entity. They don't know what it is. If it's constructed in some manner by some intelligence in some factory someplace, or if it's in fact alive and it's an entity coming from another dimension. That's some fascinating stuff. The Interesting Engineering is running an article. U.S. warship sailor confirmed seeing mysterious flying ships emerging from the ocean. This again would coincide with our ongoing cyber prophecies coming out of the webbots, stating that over the course of the summer, not only will there be a huge amount of attention turned to the alien presence on this planet, but that in context, contextually speaking, it will be concerning the world's oceans and the fact that they are literally infesting our oceans. Not only are they there, but they are there in vast numbers. And I'd like to remind everyone, Congressman Tim Burchett from Tennessee has publicly stated and is on the record as stating that he has personal private information from a whistleblower stating that the U.S. Navy is actively tracking an object that is over a mile wide in our ocean. That's probably an underwater alien city of some kind that's able to move its locations. So, Interesting Engineering. Again, providing that link. An Area 51 linked, and this comes from LAD Bible. Area 51 linked Navy sailor reveals chilling details after seeing a UFO. Here again is a sailor on a naval craft who saw USOs coming out of the ocean. So this is a theme that is showing up time and again right now as we're entering into the summer months. And it's in the summer months that the webbot says lots and lots of alien information gets revealed. We do have some information to cover in Cyber Prophecy tonight, which is fascinating information. The Daily American is running an article. Well, it's all about a local. It doesn't look like that's going to be much for us. That's a local Bigfoot conference taking place. And here's a big one. Bro Bible running an article. Trump science director claims the U.S. can, quote, manipulate time and space, which sends conspiracy theorists spiraling. And Bro Bible is actually quite a good source. It says, Michael Kratsios, the science advisor to President Donald Trump and director of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, claimed this week that the United States can manipulate time and space. Naturally, such a bold and bizarre statement from a government official sent conspiracy theorists into overdrive. Kratsios made this claim while speaking at the Endless Frontiers Retreat, an event that says it is focused on rebuilding the foundations of American strength at a time of geopolitical and technological upheaval. Quote, as the nation approached its bicentennial, Americans look forward to electricity to meter, Michael Kratsios told the audience. By the end of 1972, 30 nuclear plants were operational, 55 were under construction, and more than 80 were planned or ordered. That same year, the Apollo 17 astronauts became the 11th and 12th men to walk on the moon 5 years before the X-15 rocket. And he goes on to say that today's energy prices are way out of control and that we have technologies that will replace them. And that's going to feature prominently in tonight's cyber prophecy. And we will get back to our cyber prophecy part of the program right after our break.
Hi, I'm Gregory Hines. Every 53 seconds, someone in the United States suffers a life-threatening attack. In fact, about 600,000 Americans become victims and over 106,000 die each year from stroke. The damage it leaves behind is devastating to its victims and their families. And that's why you need to learn the 5 warning signs of stroke. Call the Will Rogers Institute today at 1-877-957-7575 for a free booklet filled with information on stroke. Knowing more can save your life.
Bigfoot roams, dark and owls. Spaceships fly, portals. Slip through, time slip wide. Slip through live radio. Mystical airwaves. Mystical. In the woods, shadows creep, monsters leave. In the woods, strange voices. Shadows creep in the woods, monsters leave. In the woods, bright noises. Mystical. Airwave mystical. Mystical. UFO. Alien overlord.
From ancient times to modern days, legends of creatures in sudden disarray. Hear them speak through frequencies. Alien connections.
Tune it in, break it out, truth untold. Tune it in, cosmic mystery. Dark woods, where legends breathe. Paranormal whispers, can you believe? Bigfoot strikes.
everyone, to Paranormal Intelligence Agency Radio. I'm your host, Jack Carey, and we're coming back off our break, and we were discussing paranormal in the news. And really, this last article, Trump science director claims U.S. can manipulate time and space. That's a big part, really, pardon me, of cyber prophecy. So the webbot is saying that we're entering into a period of real chaos. You think it's been chaotic lately over the last few months? You ain't seen nothing yet. That's what basically what the webbot is saying. There's going to be a lot of chaos, and a lot of that is tied to planetary cycles. And there is a planetary cycle in ancient times that was known, and it's known to us today, and many people are sort of rediscovering this. And it's been discovered that this planetary cycle, which is known as the Kali Yuga, really coincides almost perfectly with different cyber predictions calculated by the webbot and its neuro-linguistic data trend analysis of the totality of really conversational traffic going on around the world. You have to remember that the webbot, it works. The best way to explain it is that the human species is collectively psychic, like a singular organism. And right before it gets hit with something, it flinches. And that flinch shows up in conversations worldwide. And there are such commonalities between all of that interaction, language interaction taking place, that it's able to come out with major themes and predictions of things that are about to occur. And it's interesting because it is saying that the Kali Yuga is sort of matching up perfectly with the Kali Yuga. And the Kali Yuga, there's two parts to it. There's an ascending part and there's a descending part. We just came out of the descending part, and now we're on the ascending part, which is the good news for the human species. The ascending part brings us back around eventually into the so-called golden age, when we're bombarded by cosmic rays from our galactic center, and that interacts with our star, which interacts with our biology in such a way that it creates, well, in humans, a type of super intelligence. All of our abilities become enhanced, magnified many, many times. And people are beginning to experience that now around the world. People are beginning to wake up to new, different kinds of abilities that they never had before. That's all part of the Kali Yuga. And right now, the Kali Yuga basically divides down into 300-year categories. And right now, we're in a phase that's known for chaos. And that coincides perfectly with our webbot cyber prophecies that are coming out, because they describe an era of so-called secrets revealed, which by being revealed end up causing a lot of chaos. And over the next 25-year period, beginning this summer, and it basically is stating that the beginning of the secret reveals period is really the busiest time. It's the time when the most secrets all come out simultaneously, and then over the next 25-year period or so, you'll see basically all of the secrets that were built up during the Piscean age will become known to the public. This leads to all kinds of repercussions. One of those repercussions is ontological shock. Ontological shock is that point where a life form's belief systems are basically come into full collision with the reality of the universe itself, and often there's a destruction of those belief systems. This is also referred to by the Webbot as a singularity, not to be confused with singularity in the artificial intelligence world, which is artificial intelligence is largely a bunch of BS. It will never be sentient. It can never have consciousness. It will never be part of the overall consciousness stream of the universe, which we're, as sentient beings, are all part of. At best, it can assist us with our work, and that sort of thing. But this idea that it will reach a point of singular consciousness with humanity, that kind of thing, really is total fiction and will never occur. But ontological shock is real. And the Webbot is predicting that over the course of the next few years, we're talking about fast, there will be a destruction of most religions on the planet. Can you imagine? A total destruction. And that's because none of them are aligned with the facts and the truth as the universe are presenting to us in the form of interaction with a non-human intelligence. That, when you introduce that into a bubble, all kinds of things begin to occur. One of those things that occurs is economic upheaval, because you're introducing exterior forces and technologies into a closed system based on the petrodollar. When you do that, you will have absolute, complete economic chaos ensue. It is unavoidable, and it is natural, and it is necessary. Humans don't like to experience pain because, let's face it, it's no fun, but pain often leads to the kind of change that is necessary for our survival. And we're at that stage now. And the Webbot is saying that eventually through this period of secrets becoming known, and many of these secrets that it's mentioning and talking about are mundane secrets. Many of the secrets have to do with power, with wealth, and with sex on this planet, and with the economy of power, which is controlled through money and sex on this planet. All of those secrets become known, become glaringly embarrassing to the human species, that's what actually controls our society, to a point where there is an ontological singularity with this non-human intelligence. In other words, we come to a point where our understanding of reality, our place within the universe, all of that becomes a singularity with the understanding, the same sort of understanding that this non-human intelligence has concerning the universe. That's the singularity. And that singularity will literally decimate our existing belief systems. They just can't stand in the face of that kind of truth. And so this, whole idea, when somebody mentions a God in this universe, they're mentioning a being that's contained within this material. That's completely different than talking about the creator of the ontological universe. And that is in itself the ontological model, and how we're going to have to begin to think, because we're being faced with a non-human intelligence that has a technology which to us appears as though it's magic, It's that advanced, as Arthur C. Clarke said. Any sufficiently advanced science will be indistinguishable from magic, and their technology does not obey our understanding of the rules of physics. That alone tells us that this whole idea that we have of physics based on Einstein and his mathematics is faulty. It is in error, and it is a dead-end path. All of that will become known over the next few years. But the byproduct of all of that chaos will be the salvation of the human species through 0-point energy and 0-point technologies. This will, of course, give birth to an entirely new form of economy, one not based on petrodollars or based on the debt accumulation system, which dates all the way back to Babylonian times and which has been used by sinister forces on this planet ever since to gain control over their fellow human beings. All of that's going to come to an end. And all of that gave birth to all of the secrets that we have suffered from as a species over many, many decades, hundreds of years of time, has been lost to us as a species because of the introduction of this monetary system that we're all still victims of to this day. So, but that is the cyber prophecy for tonight. It is saying, get ready, hold on tight, because the secret revealed phase of our existence in this lifetime right now on this planet is going to be one of non-stop shock. There will be shock after shock after shock of secrets being revealed. And it all really gets going this summer. So on tonight's Cryptid Corner, I've got a fascinating account for you guys before we hit our main topic, alien abduction. And this comes out of, believe it or not, off the coast of Maui. I was actually married on the island of Maui, and I can tell you it is pure paradise. I was stationed at Pearl Harbor in the Navy, and so I was lucky enough to live in Hawaii for a good portion of my life, and I love it to this day. And I never would have imagined the account that is coming out of some very accomplished divers that make their living in the so-called trop industry. Now, the trop industry in the islands are those guys who go out day and night to hunt tropical fish for the aquarium industry and for pet shops around the world. And they get paid handsomely for what they do. And this was a group of them who, it turns out, the boss had just gotten a new boat, and they were going to take it out, not during the day, but right at dusk to do some night trapping. They have these powerful lights that attract tropical fish, etc., and they're able to catch various species at night and that sort of thing. And so they take this brand new boat out, and they describe this area as being right off the shelf, basically. So there's an area that's pretty shallow off the coast of Maui, and then all of a sudden you hit an area where it just drops straight off down into the depths, really, really deep. And they were just off the shelf when they were beginning to put on their diving suits and gear, and they began to hear a noise. They say maybe 50 feet from the boat. It was dark out. They couldn't make out what was going on, but they could make out a little bit of like white water and that sort of thing. And the captain of the boat had installed a 1 million candle power spotlight on this boat. And he flipped it on and spun it around. And what they saw before them was a true horror show. Poking up out of the water, not one, but 2 creatures whose heads were on long necks that were described as being 5 or 6 feet in length. The heads were described as being horse-like, mounted on the necks very much like a horse. And they described seeing, glistening in this light, these sharp, needle-like teeth in the mouths of these creatures as they were battling one another. And they said every time one creature would lunge at the other one, it would snap its mouth and make this huge cracking noise in the air. Eventually, and this is over a 10, 15 second period, one of the creatures was able to strike the other in the neck, causing a vast amount of fluid, they said, to come out of the neck. And that creature disappeared down into the water, and then the second creature disappeared down into the water. Now, they describe these creatures as looking very much like descriptions of the Loch Ness Monster. That's exactly what people describe: a horse-like head on a elongated neck extending up out of the water. And I think that might play into the idea that the loch is in and of itself a migrational spawning pool for these creatures. It's just an idea, just a theory I have. But let's get to tonight's subject, and that is alien abduction. And let's face it, when it comes to the UFO phenomenon, when it comes to UAP disclosure and USOs and their obsession with our nuclear technology and the possibility, as our whistleblowers are saying, that there's been a deep underground black budget program to back engineer and weaponize alien technology before our enemies do it. A true alien arms race, if you will, taking place on this planet by the human species, one against the other, in an effort to gain dominance over our planet, which it appears is already dominated by a non-human intelligence. So, ever since 1957 in the Boaz Villa case in Brazil, and then in 1961 with Betty and Barney Hill, we have a vast number of alien abduction cases. And it's interesting because when you listen to the research of David M. Jacobs and some of the better researchers into the phenomenon, they'll tell you that they've got traces of the alien abduction phenomenon going all the way back into the 1920s, but they don't think that the same phenomenon, the same abduction phenomenon taking place right now, was occurring in ancient times. They don't discount the idea that there was interaction with other alien races and that maybe some of those alien races gave somebody here or there a message of some kind, that kind of a thing. But when it comes to the here and now alien abduction experience, it is apparent that whatever is behind it, and we have glimpses of what that is, it's fair to say, modern day phenomenon, only stretching back really into the 1920s. And really doesn't take off until the late 50s, early 60s. And then you can really begin to see the program get its legs underneath it and begin to take off. And what we discovered in all of the testimony from all of these alien abductees that have been studied over at least the last 40-year period is that there are a few themes. One of those themes is that they have been actively breeding a hybrid race. It's a hybrid race that are now referred to as hybrids because they are so human-like that you can't tell the difference between them and another human being, and they are bred to look and act completely average. You wouldn't be able to scan a room that had hybrids in them and tell the difference between them and anybody else. And there's been a number of cases where the alien abductees, who largely are women who are basically providing the biological material for this program through their reproductive processes, are often shown images of people in normal situations. For example, imagine that you're an abductee and you're taken into a room and you're shown images on a wall, and those images are just of average people at a park having a picnic. And the alien intelligence, the gray alien standing there projects into your mind, can you tell the difference between them and us? Can you tell the difference between you and us? And the abductee often is taken aback and says, what do you mean the difference? They're all the same. And then a series of messages will be projected into their mind. And that series of messages appears over and over and over again. Soon, we will all be together. Soon, everyone will be happy. Soon, everyone will know their place. That's very interesting. We know from a number of abductees that it has taken approximately 8 full generations of effort to produce these hybrids that are now being integrated into our society worldwide. Now, these hybrids, or these advanced hybrids, have one nasty little secret. They aren't just alien in nature. They are neurologically superior to other human beings, meaning that they have the same neurologic ability as their creators to mentally, telepathically control human thought, emotion, and therefore action within a given distance. There are indications that the government is aware of how far this given distance is, but often these abductees come back having gotten a glimpse of what's going on behind the curtain. And it appears as though the gray aliens with the big almond eyes, well, those are just von Neumann probes. Those are just another biological construction by the real aliens, who are apparently insectoid in nature and are often described as looking like praying mantises. It is these mantis creatures, as they are referred to, that are the true order givers, and everything else within their environment is an order taker. That has been proven true time and again through testimony after testimony after testimony. And so I ask you again, what are we looking at here? Are these the creatures in the Type 3 civilization that has colonized our entire galaxy, who farmed life on this planet and who are now harvesting that back into their civilization? These are the questions that haunt my mind, and Here on Paranormal Intelligence Agency Radio, these are the questions that we ask and present to you every single week. Join me next week, Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. Central, and we will jump down another deep, dark rabbit hole. I'll see you then.